23 minutes past 6, on to something slightly different, because Dan Dare, the comic strip hero created by a Southport vicar in the 1950s, is getting a multi-million-pound makeover for a new television series and a film. The space pilot, who entertained millions of Eagle comic readers, is to lose his chiseled jaw and will be younger, apparently. And instead of a military uniform, he'll be wearing pink trousers.
Activating the magneto-atomic drive.
Dan Dare, the 1950s pilot of the future, as he looks today. Younger, slimmer, and missing his old trademark square jaw and odd eyebrows.
We've tested the market with young people, under 11s, under 12s, under 13s. And the minute you get to a position where they say, Dan's cool, you know you've arrived.
And Northern sidekick Digby is no longer Northern.
I say so. You do seem to revel in warm situations.
He's now Cockney, because it was thought over there in America that Cockney would be slightly more understandable than a Northern dialect. So for purists, I apologise.
But the Dan of the 1950s has thousands of fans, most over 40, and they liked his square jaw, and they hate the pink trousers.
The new Dan Dare is not the old Dan Dare. It's a character. I think it's a shame that it has to be called Dan Dare, because I'm certain that other names would be suitable, but it's not the original Dan Dare.
And so Dan loses his square chin because kids don't like it anymore. He started to tell jokes, and the prop here, well, she's a good deal more curvaceous, but a good deal less subservient 50 years on. David Solido, BBC News, at Dan Dare's launch party.
Hang on, chaps! This could be a touch uncomfortable!
So what do we make of it all? Joining me in the studio is comedian and writer Robin Ince. It's not really Dan Dare, is it? It's just someone else entirely, it sounds like, from that.
Well, it is. I think it's very lazy. I mean, they could have just created a new character, because to me, Dan Dare is very much, it's the 1950s. It's going, come on, Mekon, you're trying to battle the British Empire here. And I think it's a great pity that rather than just create an entirely new character, they've just taken a brand name, and, as that report said, a brand name which actually means nothing to anyone really almost under 40 at all. I mean, I read it in dentist waiting rooms. That was it, and that was because the dentist was lazy and didn't buy new comics.
But brand names, have you hit the nail on the head there, that this is actually about marketing and selling, perhaps the merchandise that will inevitably come with this?
Well, I think I mean, ever since kind of He-Man and the Master of the Universe, I think that was the really big one in the 80s. Obviously, it started with Star Wars. They made an enormous amount of money, but Star Wars was a film first and then the merchandise. I think since He-Man and that kind of stuff, people have gone, right, we can do lunch boxes, we can do pretend guns, we can do face masks, and I imagine that's really the thinking behind this as well.
Are there not some comic strip heroes that they've managed to stay true to the original characteristics? I don't know, Spider-Man, something like that? Did they not stick with it?
Well, there's a lot of reinvention all the time. I mean, DC Comics did Batman and Superman. That was in the 30s and 40s, said it was very just square-jawed, you take that, you nasty criminal. And then Spider-Man was more of a kind of beatnik superhero. In fact, all the Marvel X-Men, etc., they were people who suffered. This was a big change, actually, in superheroes, where they started to suffer all these neuroses, going, oh, I've got these superpowers, it's terrible. And then, of course, Batman's been reinvented as well, where he became the Dark Knight, where, again, there was this dark side about his parents' death, stuff like that. So there is always reinvention, but I think the point about Dan Dare is he really is stuck in that time of a Commonwealth, I think, of the old British Empire. And whereas Batman was always with us, Dan Dare was relaunched in the 70s, and it was a disaster. No one was interested anymore. So I think the only way they can keep the interest is by, it's not Dan Dare, it's another bloke with a gun and a rocket ship, and he'll look lovely on a lunchbox.
Does it make you sad that that's the way it's gone, that there is no creativity and they can't just come up with something fresh entirely?
Well, it's the Hollywood syndrome, isn't it? It's, should we make a new movie? Should we either remake an old classic movie, or should we just take, you know, the Beverly Hillbillies and remake that instead? It's extreme laziness, I think.
I wish you'd done the voices for it, though. That sounds very entertaining.
I'm still available.
Robin Ince for now. Thank you very much indeed.
Now a man claiming he can't remember